Welcome to This Week in Basketball. I'm your host, Easy Leasy, and the place to be. They just released the NBA All-Star starters. And needless to say, big snore. Not that I don't appreciate these players and their talents, but the entire All-Star format has needed an overhaul for quite some time. Not just the voting, but the game, the dunk contest, the jerseys, even the locale. I mean, my roots are in Sacramento, and yet there's never been an All-Star game there. Yet they had it in Charlotte, and Charlotte ain't been good since Muggsy and Grandmama. Okay, pardon my tangent. Anyway, All-Star rosters often come with a bit of controversy. Who's deserving, who gets snubbed, why one team gets 3 All-Stars and another just 1, etc., etc., and so forth. Are the starters really that intriguing or surprising? No. The reserves maybe, but still. Recently, I came across a video on Threads. Okay, it was actually Instagram, but I had you for a second. From acclaimed podcaster and radio personality Trista Crick, talking about how good of a team would an ALL-Jalen's team be. And that got me to thinking, what other obscure all-star teams could be put together? Now, I'm sure this idea has been explored before, but maybe not some of the teams I've come up with. So, let's drive and kick it. Okay, before we get started, a quick side note. I'm not ranking or rating these players based off opinion or favor. I'm going to base it off of 2K ratings, which may or may not have any merit to it based on who you ask, and maybe the ESPN fantasy ranking, and of course basic NBA stats. Players currently hurt will not affect anything. Also, while the normal NBA roster is about 12 to 15 guys, it would be a ridiculous, unnecessary, and damn near impossible task to fill these fake teams up. So, initially, I wanted to do 6 players, but I was able to come up with a satisfying 7 players per team, and that's where it be. So about that ALL-Jalen team, it's actually not a bad squad. Let's go over the roster real quick. At point guard, we have, of course, Jalen Brunson. And filling out the rest of the backcourt is Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs. As for your wing players, we have Jaylen Brown and Jalen Williams. And to round out the roster, we have Jalen Duren and Jalen Johnson. And of course, their head coach is Jalen Rose, the only other semi-relevant Jalen in the history of the NBA. Not a bad crop of Jalens if you ask me. But how would they fare against this team? The all light-skinned team. Now, initially, in putting this squad together, it quickly dawned on me just how OP this team would be. Got Curry, Tatum, Brunson, Booker, AD, Halliburton, just to name a few. So I gave myself 2 rules. I could only choose players who weren't all-stars, nor never won a championship. And boy, did that narrow it down. But you know what though? It turned out not to be a bad squad altogether. Now, I'm not going to get into the intricacies of light-skinned people, but I will say that I'm generally basing this off of the idea that said player potentially has mixed parents, one or both of which is African American and one or both of which is some form of Caucasoidal. I'm giving myself a skin tone limit, if you will. So a player like Jordan Clarkson, for example, is Filipino and black. As far as skin tone, he's more of a honey brown. The only thing I can say with that is not quite light enough, but that's a debate for someone else. Plus, I have other plans for him. I'm looking for the pure beige boys. So, and first off, we have, of course, Detroit's own Cade Cunningham. who is the bona fide star player of this team. As of the writing and recording of this, he has not made an all-star team, but that should change this year, with the reserves being announced in just a few days. I expect him to be on that team. He's having a fantastic season and fantasy season, and the Detroit Pistons are actually in the playoff hunt, and definite stat filler. Next, based off of 2K ratings, both Desmond Bane and Cameron Johnson are ranked at 86. Now, ESPN Fantasy has Bane higher ranked, but you can argue who's better, but both are on the team. Both bring great three-point shooting, so you can't go wrong having either. Next up, sophomore big for the Mavs, Derek Lively. When healthy, he's a big-time rebounder and solid defender, and the only true center for this team. Speaking of solid, at 84, we have the versatile Josh Hart. He's not here to score, and you don't need him to, but he'll do every other damn thing you need. Clean the glass, make passes, and defend the wing. But if you want a great wing defender, you're going to want this kid, the dynamite young defender for the Hawks, Dyson Daniels, the current league leader in steals. He's long, quick, and tough. My man's going to be on you like a bad smell. Now for the last player, this may or may not be controversial, but being light-skinned with a solid 82 2K rating, Dillon Brooks just made sense. With Dillon, some are not a fan of him, but Dillon Brooks is not a bad player to have. You need a dog, an enforcer, a goon. He has one job and he'll do it well enough. And of course, their head coach is Jake from State Farm. All around, this is a pretty decent squad on paper. The biggest question is health and durability, because you need to be on the floor to be effective, and for a lot of these players, they've missed significant time every season. So when healthy, they could totally get up and down the floor, be a very good transition high-paced team. What they lack in size, they more than make up for in scoring, especially shooting. With Cade's ability to get to the rim and his sharp passing, combined with the perimeter shooting that they have, the drive and kick game could definitely be in effect. Their biggest asset is obviously their defense, with good rebounders at every level too. Could they give the ALL-Jalen team a run for their money? Maybe so. Based off their 2K ratings, they're fairly stacked. An effective mix of slashers and mid-range jump shooters, and very good rebounders. With Brown and Williams as your wing defenders, you could pretty much have every position 1 to 4 covered defensively. While they would have no problem scoring, their three-point shooting could potentially be lacking. Now this is just an amateur simulation, but in a way, it gives you an idea as to the scope of these players' abilities. But even in watching this, you could see this ultimately turned into a point guard battle between Jalen Brunson and Cade Cunningham. And rightfully so. These are two of the best young guards, not just in the East, but in the NBA as a whole. They're both highly skilled, multifaceted players, and both have shown great leadership tendencies, constantly putting their teams in positions to compete and win against anyone. Surprisingly, Jaylen Brown was pretty much a non-factor in the game, as was Cameron Johnson. Now again, this is just a video game. I'm sure in an actual game, things would roughly be different. Now I could have used actual game highlights from whatever source, but this isn't about what these players can do. This was just a fun exercise in unnecessariness. I'll leave it to you to decide who's better. But the light skins take it. Tune in next week to see what new team I come up with. For now, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Hit the helpers and pad the stats. Otherwise, this has been Easy Leasy with This Week in Basketball, signing off. See ya.